The National Desk, America's News Now.
Debby's destruction now expanding as it moves up the East Coast tonight. The area is still getting slammed, and when we could expect Debby to actually leave the U.S. and the West Nile threat, where in the country the virus is spreading and the symptoms you need to look out for. And here we go again, election interference. This time we're tracking the unsuspecting ways that Iran is already trying to meddle in the presidential election. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the National Desk. America's News Now. I'm Angela Brown. Debby is not letting up. Right now, 35 million Americans are under flood alerts and more than 11 million are under tornado watches as well. Right now, what is left of Debby is moving east. The storm that started as a hurricane in Florida is now dumping heavy rain on the northeast, causing life-threatening flooding in Pennsylvania, leaving major flooding damage, as you can see behind me, across South Carolina overnight as well. Debby dumping over 8 inches of rain in Virginia and over 9 inches in Delaware, along with tornadoes in multiple states. The death toll, sadly, now standing at 8. The rain is forecast to quickly leave northern New England by tomorrow morning. Thousands of people, though, were without power today. Over 100,000 customers from Virginia to New York did not have electricity as of this afternoon. The National Hurricane Center says Debby had sustained winds of 35 miles per hour this morning. Our team of reporters are covering the storm from cities along the coast.
After drenching the mid-Atlantic and the South, Debby's remnants now ripping through the Northeast, bringing the threat of flash flooding, heavy rain, and tornadoes. The tropical system wreaking havoc across North Carolina, spawning tornadoes that leveled homes and buildings. Genesis Cooper of Lucama, east of Raleigh, says he, along with his wife and son, huddled inside of a bathroom as that tornado blew through.
And he had a punching bag in there full of sand, one of the big punching bags. It blew it through his room, knocked the door out into the living room. So all that's laying in the middle of the living room floor.
This nearby school devastated. That tornado just one of 3 overnight in North Carolina. In Montgomery County, Maryland, storms uprooting trees. In Potomac, one of these trees smashing into this home, displacing an entire family of 6.
I saw a tree right there in my living room. The first thing that came in, it could have hit me. That's when my wife was shaking because she thought that the tree had fallen on top of me.
Meanwhile, near Wilmington, Delaware, the National Weather Service confirming a tornado.
There was many reports made of damage to houses, such as trees down, pole wires down.
In nearby Bear, more than a half a foot of rain fell really fast. First responders had to rescue people from the water that was too high to drive through.
It was really, really deep and very rushing. It got higher while I was sitting here waiting.
And we're keeping an eye on a tropical wave spinning over the eastern tropical Atlantic. It's producing some showers and also thunderstorms that are moving west, and that's expected to continue this weekend. It could slowly develop into a tropical depression by the beginning of next week. Now, we will continue to track this and bring you any major updates as they come in. And new tonight, 61 people are dead in Brazil after their plane fell out of the sky this afternoon, killing everyone on board. The airline Vopas says the plane crashed into a neighborhood in Sao Paulo. It's not clear why. Vopas says the plane was headed for Sao Paulo's international airport. Initial reports said there were 62 people on the plane. Brazil's president observed a moment of silence today for the victims.
I have to be the bearer of very bad news, and I would like everyone to stand up so that we can observe a minute of silence because a plane has just crashed in the city of Vinhedo in São Paulo with 58 passengers and 4 crew members, and it appears they all died. I want to ask for a minute of silence for the victims.
And developing now, 16 contractors from Texas are out of the hospital. The workers were all exposed to toxic chlorine gas cloud when a pool chemicals were improperly mixed together at the Great Wolf Lodge in Webster. The resort held its grand opening this week. The accident happened in an isolated building. It did not affect any customers or resort staff. The park remains open. West Nile virus is spreading in places like Pennsylvania. The state's first human case of the year was reported just days ago. More mosquitoes in the Pittsburgh area neighborhoods recently tested positive as well. Health officials say crews will be spraying a pesticide in several communities next week. Symptoms can include a fever, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, eye pain, and rashes. The disease can also become more severe. Now to the presidential election, and Vice President Kamala Harris and running mate Governor Tim Walz continued their campaign blitz with a stop in Arizona this evening, a crucial swing state where the race is really getting tight. Harris is planning to target the fast-growing population of Latino voters in that state. And this just in, former President Donald Trump's plane was diverted while flying to Montana, where he will speak at a rally tonight. According to the Billings airport, it was because of a mechanical issue, but Trump still landed safely in the state. Montana, of course, is a red state, but Trump is trying to help Republican Senate candidate Tim Sheehy beat Democratic incumbent Senator John Tester. It's a very expensive race here, with both parties spending tens of millions of dollars on ads and also airtime. The second longest sentence among anyone convicted in the January 6th Capitol riot has been handed down. David Nicholas Dempsey from California was sentenced to 20 years in prison for attacking police with flagpoles and other objects. Prosecutors say he injured at least 2 officers. Dempsey pleaded guilty in January and then apologized for his actions. The defense team had wanted a sentence of 6.5 years. The special counsel's office has been granted a delay in former President Donald Trump's 2020 election interference case. The judge approved a request from prosecutors with special counsel Jack Smith to allow all parties to decide next steps by the 30th. New court filings here said prosecutors needed more time to work through the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. The request marks a change to the prosecution's approach after a year of pushing for the criminal case really to move forward here. Earlier this summer, Trump was granted with sweeping immunity for acts done in his official capacity as president. New gun laws are in effect in Maine beginning today. One law will require a 3-day waiting period for gun buyers to complete a purchase and weapons retrieval. The law is among several other safety bills adopted by the state following the deadliest mass shooting in October 2023. Gun safety advocates believe the law will prevent gun deaths by providing a cooling off period. Mask mandates are back in the headlines, this time out of New York State, where it could soon be illegal to wear a mask in public in one county. Supporters say it will prevent crime, but critics call it flawed. The National Desk's Jeff Harris explains why New York isn't the only state taking this action.
Take North Carolina, for example. Back in June, lawmakers amended an existing bill increasing punishments for people wearing masks while committing a crime, something experts say could start to become more common.
Catherine Drabiak, a professor in the College of Public Health at USF, tells us the intention behind this legislation, just approved in Nassau County, New York, is public safety.
But then also things like head coverings or hoods or face coverings for public safety so that we can see who people are.
Introduced in response to the anti-Semitic incident since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, supporters of the bill say it would prevent violent protesters from hiding their identity.
But what these laws are trying to get at is a different part of behavior that we're seeing at some of these public gatherings.
The bill does have some exemptions. For example, those who wear masks for health, safety, or religious reasons. But Tony Yang, a professor at George Washington, says, quote, this could lead to confusion and potential harassment of individuals who wear masks for medical reasons, which is why Drabiak believes it's important everyone understands the purpose behind laws like these.
Religious reasons, it really is a mechanism to promote public safety and accountability for people to make sure that they're not using this as a way to commit crimes.
Now, opponents of the bill say it infringes on the health privacy laws of people with disabilities and wouldn't be enforced fairly. Offenders would face up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. It is expected to be signed into law. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
And coming up, the latest steps Israel says it will take as several countries continue to plead for a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Then a big step forward in the treatment of severe allergies, the medication that's just been approved by the FDA. Then the major steps Baltimore has taken in preparation for the remnants of Hurricane Debby. We are back in 90 seconds. And welcome back, everyone. Middle East ceasefire peace talks will begin again next week. Israel said today they will join the new discussions. Yesterday, in a joint statement, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar called on all parties to resume urgent discussions to close all remaining gaps and commence implementation of the deal without delay. There has been no official word on what Hamas is going to do. The former political head of Hamas was, of course, killed last week in Tehran. The new political leader, Yahan Sinwar, the Israelis believe he is actually hiding in a tunnel in Gaza somewhere. The framework for the negotiations will be centered around the proposal made by President Joe Biden in May. Now, phase one includes a military withdrawal by Israel and in exchange for hostages for prisoners over a 6-week time frame. Now, phase two would seek an end of the war if all hostages are released, and phase three would then allow for reconstruction of the damaged enclave. A bombshell report says Iran is already hard at work trying to interfere in U.S. elections. As the National Desk's Matt Gelka explains, they are apparently targeting both sides of the aisle.
If you didn't know any better, you might think this website is the real deal. Official pictures, vibrant colors, headlines, and articles about current events. But a new report from Microsoft says this website, NeoThinker, is actually a front for an Iran-run covert news site targeting voting groups. NeoThinker caters to progressives, even calling Donald Trump a, quote, opioid-pilled elephant in the MAGA China shop. The FBI warned about this scenario earlier in the year.
This election cycle, the U.S. will face more adversaries moving at a faster pace and enabled by new technology.
On the other side, there's Savannah Time. Researchers say this is another Iranian-backed site posing as a conservative news and opinion page. Cybersecurity expert Rob Pritchard says by targeting both Republicans and Democrats, overall confusion might be the goal.
It feels more like they probably had the order to interfere, and perhaps it's not particularly well thought out what that should look like or what the end goal is.
Microsoft's researchers said Iran, along with other sites and accounts run by China and Russia, appear to be aided by artificial intelligence to produce and distribute their content. And it's not just fake news. Microsoft's report says in June, a group run by the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps targeted an official on a presidential campaign with a spear phishing email and tried to log in to a former presidential candidate's account. Iran denied meddling in a statement to the Associated Press. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Ukraine is continuing its offensive inside Russia with a drone attack deep across the border at an energy infrastructure facility in Lipetsk region. This says counter-offensive strikes continue inside the city of Kursk for a fourth day. Thousands of residents have been forced to evacuate their homes. Last night, Ukrainian President Zelensky said in a radio address, Russia brought war to our land and should feel what it has done. A third person is now under arrest for the foiled terror attack on a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna, Austria. So far, according to officials, 3 people have been arrested, a 19, 18, and 17-year-old. Investigators say the plot appeared to have been inspired by the Islamic State group and Al-Qaeda. Swift's 3 sold-out concerts were canceled. Authorities are not looking for more suspects. A nasal spray of the EpiPen has been approved by the FDA. Neffy can now be used for rapid treatment of anaphylaxis, a life-threatening allergic reaction. Neffy is a single-dose spray into one nostril, but a second dose can be used if it's absolutely needed. It's available for adults and children weighing 66 pounds or more. The CrossFit Games are continuing one day after the death of an elite athlete while competing. 28-year-old Serbian Lazar Dukic disappeared beneath the water during the swimming event in a Fort Worth, Texas lake. His cause of death has not yet been announced. CrossFit says it is cooperating in this investigation. For the first time ever, breakdancing is now an Olympic sport, but Team USA failed to earn a medal rounds for the women's competition. They didn't get a medal. The gold here went to Japan. However, the U.S. women's 4x100 team, anchored by Sha'Carri Richardson, did win gold today, and did as well was Rob Benjamin in the men's 400 hurdles. Now, if you're wondering what the medal count is, here it is. The U.S. maintains a sizable lead, but China has tied the U.S. again in golds. Many of the team events are over the weekend, including basketball. Both teams are still alive. And the women's soccer team trying for gold tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It is now estimated that more than $55 billion in opioid settlement money will go to states around the country to help battle the opioid epidemic. Spotlight on America has been tracking the settlement money for the past year. And investigative correspondent Angie Morishi has discovered many grassroots organizations who have been on the front lines of this, battling the drug crisis for the past decades, are having a hard time actually getting access to this money.
How old are you now?
8, about to be 9.
It's been almost 2 years since Ava lost her dad to an opioid overdose.
There you go.
Ever since, she's been raised in Columbus, Ohio by her grandmother, Jackie Lewis, who is now a fierce advocate for families who've lost loved ones to substance use. Lewis had high hopes that opioid settlement money could help impacted families, but she says getting funds has been difficult.
The process for applying is very complicated, in my opinion.
Ohio set up the One Ohio Recovery Foundation to distribute 55% of the settlement money to the community. It's been 2 years since the state received its first payout, but One Ohio has yet to distribute any funds.
It infuriates me, quite honestly.
One Ohio finally opened an application process for grants this spring and said on its website grant announcements were expected to begin mid-summer. But in late July, that was removed and replaced with announcements expected later this year.
Every day it's not out there, that's another day where people are dying.
How are you doing?
It's really hard.
Alexis Plus lost her son Jeff to an overdose 10 years ago and has dedicated her life to fighting the opioid epidemic ever since. She founded Truth Farm, which is known for its yearly March on Washington and represents families across the country. She says grassroots groups nationwide are having trouble getting funds.
It's 100% a problem across the country.
The grant tracking portal. OpioidSettlementTracker.com recently launched a new resource with the Legal Action Center. It's New Jersey, no process. New Mexico, no process. It keeps track of which states are offering grant opportunities to community groups.
In order to spend these monies well, I think it's imperative for decision makers to reach out to the folks impacted most.
Founder Christine Minhey says about a dozen states have yet to announce community grant programs.
One of our big goals to level the playing field for those who might need these resources most.
Back in Ohio, Jackie Lewis joined forces with 8 nonprofits and hired a company that specializes in grant writing to help them apply for funds.
We needed somebody that understood the inside track, so to speak, and this group, they know the players, the politicians, how the workings are.
So now they wait and hope for funding to help their cause.
What do you want us to know about your grandma, Jackie?
She's a good mom.
Oh.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Angie Moreski.
And coming up, why a police department in Maine says it has no choice but to shut down and how the town will protect its residents without those officers. We're going to be right back. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From the final preparations before severe weather in Maryland to a police department forced to shut down in a small town in Maine, we're taking the pulse of America. But we start in Washington State, where voters just said no to more taxes.
Everett Proposition 1 was on the ballot here for the primary election. If it had passed, it would have funded a lot of services: public safety, police and fire departments, park maintenance, libraries, the animal shelter, also street maintenance, neighborhood associations, and social services. However, homeowners would have had to give up more money on their property taxes. It would have cost them about $28 extra a month based on Everett's average home value. While some we talked with in Everett see the value of paying more for services, they also see the other side's point of view. Everything is already expensive, and they do not want to pay any extra taxes.
Hold a bag, shovel. In Baltimore, the prep before the storm. Remnants of Hurricane Debby expected to impact the region with gusty winds, heavy rain, and areas prone to flooding, including Fells Point, one of the areas where the city's Department of Transportation is providing sandbags to help against potential flooding.
I just moved here 2 years ago. I have no idea what to expect, but my neighbor told me they hand out these free bags, so I'm just getting ready for it.
So is the city bracing for Debby.
Or Debbie Downer, as we are calling her.
Mayor Brandon Scott at City Hall this week outlining the city's response, which includes free parking for residents in Fells Point, where flooding is expected, starting Thursday through Saturday at city-owned garages. First come, first serve.
We've been short-staffed for over a year now.
Mexico Police Chief Roy Hodgson says his small agency hit a breaking point last week.
Within 2 days, I had 2 resignations on my desk.
With those officers leaving and a third already applying elsewhere, he says the town had no choice but to close the department starting on August 20th until they can find more officers.
I need help. My town needs help. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but that's what we had to do to make sure my citizens are protected.
Last year, there were more than 3,000 calls for help made to Mexico police. Under state law, that responsibility will now shift to the Oxford County Sheriff's Office.
This is a situation that's unfortunate, but we're going to have to step up and provide the services.
And coming up, people in Florida are being challenged to capture and kill as many pythons as they can. The prizes they are competing for right after this. Beginning today, participants in the Florida Python Challenge had the opportunity to win more than $25,000 in prizes combined if they can capture and kill the invasive Burmese python that lives in the Everglades. It is unknown exactly when the Burmese python was brought to Florida, but with no natural predator, it is endangered to local wildlife. Last year, the challenge brought more than 1,000 participants from 35 states and also overseas. They captured 209 pythons. The challenge lasts 10 days. Prizes will be awarded in 3 groups: professionals, novices, and military. The winner of each group will get $2,500. The runner-up, $1,500. The largest snake caught wins $1,000. The overall snake catcher will also win $10,000. Last year's winner caught 20 snakes. Well, that does it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. Just check your local listings. I'm Angela Brown. Thank you for watching.